sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go on a Tuesday here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your evening. Jay's joining us. We got a lot to discuss. Championship weekend is over. Lots to really kind of recover from. But like I said, there's going to be a lot of this that we'll have to obviously talk more about. Because again, there's breakdowns of the teams that won, and then there's breakdowns of the teams that lost. So we're going to get at least a bit of both. But and then we got Dallas debacle right now with the Brian Schottenheimer move. We're going to talk more about that as well here.
And who's the leading candidate for the Saints job?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's now – because right now, Kellen Moore, they're looking at it. But then again, there could be a chance that Mike McCarthy might end up sneaking in somehow, some way.
I mean, they just conducted their second interview with Kellen Moore, and they've also had a second interview with Mike Kafka, who is leading the Senior Bowl teams this year. So who knows? It could be Mike Kafka as well. So it's a three-way race between three people.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to really kind of look into. So let's discuss about, first off, what we learned. And let's start with the NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles. So basically, this was what we kind of predicted with the Philadelphia Eagles. Overly talented roster. And you know that they could not miss the opportunity of getting to the Super Bowl. We knew that this was going to be a playoff team. We knew that this was obviously going to be division winners. But this is the kind of stuff is like we predicted that the Philadelphia Eagles would be. Overly talented. And listen, Saquon Barkley, he's having a hell of a year. But the takeaway about the Philadelphia Eagles today is that if you look at the past with all of the Philadelphia Eagle teams, okay, the ones who had made a Super Bowl, we know that 2 years ago or 3 years ago against the Kansas City Chiefs, they had Miles Sanders as their running back. Now they've got Saquon Barkley. They've upgraded at the running back position. And Saquon Barkley is just a freak of nature. But the other thing that I also want to appreciate more is that the fact that Jalen Hurts is now the third NFC quarterback to have had multiple appearances in the Super Bowl from Eli Manning and Russell Wilson and now Jalen Hurts. I love the fact that, like with Jalen, he doesn't have to do so much. He doesn't have to go out there and just be a superstar, be a rock star, be a Mahomes, be a Josh Allen, or a lot of these other quarterbacks. He doesn't have to be that. Jalen Hurts is his own quarterback. And the deal with this is that with what you watched in that Washington game, and I'll talk about the Commanders a little bit later on as well, same as I will do about summing up the Buffalo Bills about what happened and what went wrong. But the thing about this is that Philadelphia has so much of an overly talented roster that you could not live out of the fact, like you could not live with the fact that this team is too good not to make the Super Bowl. I get it. We have question marks about the coach. They've got two different coordinators this time because last time it was Shane Steichen and it was Jonathan Gannon. And now we have Kellen Moore and we've got Vic Fangio in the big stage. So to me, Philadelphia, you already know this is an overly talented team where Jalen Hurts, all he's got to do is he's just got to get the football in the right spots. And this is the funny thing. They could be focused in on Saquon Barkley, but then you got to think about A.J. Brown, and you got to think about Devontae Smith, and you got to think about Dallas Goedert. You got to think about a bunch of guys. And even defensively, you've got two corners. Okay, two rookie corners, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, who are having really, really good years. But this all stems from the product from the top down. So when you look at Jeffrey Lurie and you look at Howie Roseman, this is the standard. This is what you build the roster around. And the NFC, it's classic for this because we'll talk more about the AFC after this. But this is the classic of how you build a roster together. They don't think about superstar quarterback because think about it. We've watched Brock Purdy. We've watched Dak Prescott. We've watched Jalen Hurts. We watched all these other quarterbacks. You do not have to have an overly rock star at quarterback. That's what the NFC is telling you. All you really have to truthfully build upon is a roster. Defensively, offensively, that's what you got to do. And you also got to have a very good special teams. But we know that coaching can seem a little bit different. But the thing about it is, and I know we have question marks on Nick Sirianni, but all you got to do is you got to make all the components work. That's the most important thing. And that's what Philadelphia does well. Those losses with Philadelphia, to me personally, felt a lot like Philadelphia just beat themselves. You know what that reminds me of? Reminds me of the national champions, Ohio State Buckeyes. The only way that the Buckeyes would lose is if they lost to themselves. And they did that twice. And they steamrolled, and now they're national champions. I mean, again, we know it's a different build with the Philadelphia Eagles, but do you really think that they would care that much about the losses? Absolutely not. We know they lost to the Falcons. We know that they lost to the Commanders. But it's not enough to really hinder this team with as much of the talent and what is at stake. So that's why I think Philadelphia just does it so well. And now they're back in the Super Bowl. I feel like this feels a lot more like the overly talented team than what we saw in the previous time they faced against the Chiefs. So now let's go to the AFC. So the Kansas City Chiefs, once again, for the sixth time representing in the Super Bowl. This is the fifth time in 6 years now they've represented in the Super Bowl. Fifth time. And since 2018, they have been in the AFC Championship game. And so I know this may pose as an annoyance to a lot of people in the AFC when we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, but let's talk about it. Okay. You may have a lot of reservations about the Kansas City Chiefs because this is the same similar reservations you had about the New England Patriots with Tom Brady. Because think about it. And I listen, the amount of pushback, the amount of like rebellion mindset from a lot of fans. Okay, I get it. I really get it. Like Chase and I off the camera. Okay, we're AFC fans. We get it. We understand how difficult that this is when you have two teams already in the span of years who have caused nothing but hell for a lot of AFC fans altogether. It doesn't matter. West, North, East, doesn't matter. But they caused a lot of hell. In 20 years of reigning dominance with the New England Patriots, you thought the same way about Tom Brady. You thought the same way about Bill Belichick. You thought the same way about how the Patriots every year are always in the Super Bowl. Okay, and there were so many things that were working against the Patriots. Spygate, Deflategate, and then the so-called Coingate, which apparently now seems to be passed on with the Kansas City Chiefs anytime that they go into overtime. Is that what we're doing now? So there were a lot of allegations that were against the New England Patriots, okay? But here's the facts. You cannot disregard the fact of Brady's dominance and his mindset. how he's able to make clutch drives, make clutch throws, and just do what he does best. That's why Brady has so much of the hardware. When I look at Patrick Mahomes and I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, I truthfully look at what they all do well. And now there's 4 components here, because we talk about Andy Reid, we talk about Patrick Mahomes, we talk about Travis Kelce. But the one person, and I've watched him coach defensively very, very well in the past, and that's Steve Spagnuolo. Okay, defensive-minded coach. He's tried being a head coach in the past with the then St. Louis Rams before they moved to Los Angeles. And Spagnuolo, he's been a part of great defenses. Kansas City's in the last couple of years, and with the Giants. You remember, do you remember in 2007? And listen, there were clutch throws. This is why, too, it also correlates a little bit with Jalen Hurts' situation being in the Super Bowl the second time. But they've had great defenses. Okay, I can remember where New York had Strahan in his last year. You had O.C. Umenyiora. You were starting to build up Justin Tuck, and you had Kiwanuka. You had a bunch of other really good defensive guys, but they were all situational defensive guys. That's all the products of Steve Spagnuolo. Go back to 2011 when they beat the Patriots the second time with Eli. Same thing. Jason Pierre-Paul. How many times is his name thrown around every time when he got a sack or he got a pressure? It was thrown around everywhere. And you also had Tuck, you had Canty, you had a bunch of other really good players, and all it took was 2 clutch plays. The David Tyree helmet catch and the Mario Manningham sideline catch. That's what it took to win the Super Bowl for the Giants. Here we are in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes' dominance, the arguably clutch defense of Steve Spagnuolo, and everybody that's all involved in it. And then there's Andy Reid, one of the greatest offensive architects in the game. That's what he is. And so, because I think he's become the architect of the offense. The architect of the defense was Bill Belichick, 2 arguably greatest coaches in the National Football. So Andy Reid has now become the greatest offensive architect that I think we've ever seen. And once again, in a situation, and I'll talk about Buffalo, but it doesn't matter the time on the clock. It also doesn't matter whether the refs are on their side or they're against them. I've heard it every single day. I've heard it every game of every week, and I got tired of it very, very quickly because we thought the same thing when it came to New England. We did. We had the same feeling. We had the same attitude, and we had the same similar mindset. Oh, God, here we go again. There were only 3 quarterbacks that were able to beat Brady to get into the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, Joe Flacco, and Big Ben. Only person to still, to this day, beat Mahomes to get to the Super Bowl is Joe Burrow. I understand how everybody's feeling about Josh Allen. I understand how everybody's feeling about Lamar Jackson. We're feeling the same way about C.J. Stroud and Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence and a lot of other great quarterbacks in the AFC. We have a certain type of feeling about all of them, but they all have to get past one common enemy, and that's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They all do. But the thing that the Chiefs are great at, clutch plays, clutch throws, dominating time of possession. And by the way, Spagnuolo, what makes it so significant is his corner blitz package. That is what sealed the deal. Once you got Buffalo on the ropes, that's game over. Corner blitz is coming in. I'll break more down for Buffalo because I'm going to be real and honest about it. But there was so much of that game, Buffalo should have played differently. But for Kansas City, they've been in this position multiple times. No matter how all of you feel about the Kansas City Chiefs, I get it. I get it. You know, people think it's rigged. People think it's all on the ref's side. People think it's all just, scripted and Taylor Swift and all. I heard all of it because these were almost similar things we felt about New England. So get over it. It is what it is. Chiefs make it in. They got to play the Eagles once again. And most of you that think that you're not going to watch the Super Bowl, all right, good luck, because last time I checked, there was 57 million viewers who were watching that Bills-Chiefs game. So good luck. Good luck. I understand the annoyance of it, but at the end of the day, you can't hinder off the fact that this is just what Kansas City just does so well. You have one of the greatest offensive architects in Andy Reid, probably one of the best workers in his scheme in Patrick Mahomes, the other co-star in the middle of this with Travis Kelce. But then you just look at the perfect clutch defensive coordinator with all his types of blitz packages. I've seen this story before. It's what accounted for 2 championships with the Giants, and it's also what's going to be accounting for potentially another championship for Kansas City.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, for me, you're witnessing history here, like history in the making, something that you have never seen before in the history of the NFL and all of the 57, 58 years that the NFL's existed, and not one person has three-peated, and you're about to witness that. And, you know, I'm a type of person that, like, I can be okay with not seeing Kansas City win next year after this year, just because I'm like, okay, now it's starting to get the Tom Brady and New England Patriots effect. Yeah. And, you know, next year's probably going to be the year to beat the Chiefs, because with Travis Kelce possibly retiring, because his brother's even hinted at him possibly retiring after this year, especially if he wins. And then there's a, 45% chance that Andy Reid retires as well. And so, you have a chance with a new head coach next year. You have a chance without a, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce type connection. So next year's the year that, you got to have a different team step up and win. And we have not seen that. Lamar Jackson can't get over the hump. Josh Allen can't get over the hump. They shoot themselves in the foot every time that they go out there and play.
Well, and you got to think, because, and I had this discussion with multiple people, is I just look at the state of the AFC and the state of the NFC. What are the two of them differed from? The AFC is chock filled. If you look at the top 5 quarterbacks, how many of them are based out of the AFC?
At least 4.
At least 4 of them, because we know it's Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Lamar. We know that for a fact. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm just saying, with as far as the top 5, the 4 of them that we know that are all based in the AFC. Only one of those, taking out Patrick Mahomes, only one of them has been successful in beating Mahomes to get there, and that's Burrow. So people, like, this is the thing. With Brady in New England, when they reigned their dominance, only 3 quarterbacks got past them: Big Ben, Peyton, and Flacco. That's it. I mean, you throw in your Phillip Rivers, who got as close to, and this is what I thought was kind of interesting, because I don't know who it was. I think it was RG3. It was somebody that was discussing it, that feels like Josh Allen is having a similar comp to Phillip Rivers. I disagree, because here's the thing. I believe Josh Allen is far more athletic, and I think has the better quality capabilities than Phillip Rivers. Now, I know that the numbers may be different and it's still fresh, but Josh can move out the pocket. Josh is athletically gifted. Eventually, the Bills will get over that hump. But what I understand, one part is because he's 0-4 against the Chiefs. I get that fact. But it's not that simple. I mean, Phillip had to go through, and he's only been to the AFC Championship one time in his career, and that was in 2007 in New England's potential perfect season.
And didn't they go to the Super Bowl too?
The Patriots went to the Super Bowl that year, and that was when the Giants ended up beating them. So
what year did the Chargers go?
The Chargers went to the AFC Championship in 2007, And I remember
Okay.
that because that was when Phillip Rivers
Yeah.
tore his ACL. It was arguably one of the greatest efforts from any quarterback in a championship game. But that was a very talented roster, much like the roster that it was the year before. But they were in the divisional that round. You know, they got the number 1 seed at 14-2, and then they met Brady, and Brady beat them. And once again, the Chargers were back in the same similar fashion with Phillip Rivers. Yeah. And here's the thing. They had their time of dominance in the AFC West until the 2010 year where they had the best offense and best defense. And then all of a sudden, Kansas City with Matt Castle, they won. But the point is, it's not that simple to beat Mahomes and represent in the AFC, much like it was not simple for any of the 3 quarterbacks against Brady to represent in the AFC. And we've had very good quarterbacks in the AFC at that time. Before now, we moved on and we moved into a new era. And now look at all these quarterbacks now. So again, everybody's trying to throw some type of hindrance to all these quarterbacks, but give them some grace. Josh Allen eventually will get over that hump. Lamar, do you know? These guys aren't even in the Pro Bowl, by the way. Do you know how much that they wear these types of games on their shoulders? They do. Herbert's not even in the Pro Bowl. A lot of these quarterbacks that are in the AFC, they're like, I don't care about that. I don't care about the Pro Bowl. I got to get ready and be back at this thing because I want to beat Kansas City. That's every AFC quarterback's mindset. Jacksonville's got a new head coach. But the point is, the NFC, there's been one quarterback representing every year in the NFC. If you notice that. Because the thing is, I understand it with San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo, but Jimmy Garoppolo only made the Super Bowl once. And then there was Brock Purdy. So to me, the NFC is so different because it's built upon roster build. That's on both offense and defense. If you think about it, the perfect component who makes the offense work is Jalen Hurts. Everywhere on defense is all talented, built upon both veteran and the draft. That's why all these guys are playing at a high level because they knew that they were going to move on from Fletcher Cox. And then what do I get? Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. They're probably going to end up moving on from Darius Slay. But what do I got? Cooper DeSheen and Quinyon Mitchell. That is the standard of Philadelphia that I like. They just know how to build, and that's all from the smart business minds of Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman.
The only pick that I know for a fact that Howie Roseman botched completely was the Justin Jefferson pick.
Well, yeah, but he had to make that up. He had to because everybody was on him the second they took Jalen Reagor, and they knew you had to take Devontae Smith. You had to go and get the receiver. And by the way, once you did that, you then went and got A.J. Brown from Tennessee. And then all of a sudden, you're now working this idea to where now you're building back up more of your momentum. So just because the one miss did not hinder all the rest of the hits that he potentially ended up making. That's why I'm like,
but
again,
is that the biggest miss of his career? Probably.
It could be, but listen, every smart business people, how many misses did the late great Steve Jobs have on top of the success he's had in Apple? How many misses did Jeff Bezos have, or at least mistakes until Amazon is now arguably one of the biggest, it's one of the biggest shopping markets now. Now we have an automotive app now with Amazon. They're coming up with all sorts of other ideas now. I could shop for cars now on Amazon. I'm telling you.
I did not know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, this is something that launched, this year. So again, every smart business person eventually has one miss or maybe a couple mistakes. And it's like I say this when it comes to dating. Does the green flags outweigh the red? Is that the case? Do they have more green flags that we know that can solidify that this is why this person is a perfect fit for me? It's the same thing when we look at with businesses. But that's why Philadelphia's standard is so strong. It's because they know that they can hit on a lot of these. So, yeah, I know, like I said, I understand the annoyance part of Kansas City. I do. But Josh Allen said, in order to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. And who knows when that'll be. But I'll be focusing on Buffalo here after the break. But there's a lot to really talk about from it. But all right, well, as we know, all things eventually do come to an end. But Super Bowl is officially set. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And the best way to get ready for it, because again, we've actually got a very good grace period before the Super Bowl. So that means that there's a lot of opportunities on prop bets. There's a lot of opportunities on great betting lines for you to choose from, single parlay leg bets, and arguably one of the best sporting books in the country for over 30 years. And that's all through BetUS.com. Because BetUS offers you so much more. And also coming out with brand new stuff for you to get in on the action. And also the best account managers for when you sign up to get the best of the experience of what BetUS has to offer. Also, best in class casino entertainment for those of you who love slots, who love tables, and love all that. BetUS has everything you need for your entertainment and for your betting pleasure. Go online to BetUS.com, $50 or more to your deposit in the first 3 deposits. Each time you keep betting in, BetUS will match you up to 125% on the bonuses of up to $2,000. A better way to kick off 2025. And we're already ending the month. I can't even believe how much it flew by. But BetUS wants you to get on it, get ahead on the action, and sign up and play today. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or seek therapy in your respective states. Because BetUS does not want you to gamble irresponsibly. BetUS wants you to have fun and also gamble with a clear mindset to get you ready for the big game. At BetUS, where the game begins.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
All right, well, Chase broke this news last week, and it is official in Dallas, and everybody is just kind of sitting there with question mark emojis over their heads because I just don't know about this hype. So the Dallas Cowboys, it is official. Brian Schottenheimer has now been hired, and he's going to take over as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And here's why I feel this is so much of a debacle right now in Dallas that it is just nothing but a laughingstock. I mean, I thought I would have known Dallas better than this, but this is getting worse by the moment. Oh, and by the way, so Stephen Jones, right, the son of Jerry Jones, he went on and he basically talked about the Brian Schottenheimer hire because they pushed so hard for this. They vouched for Brian Schottenheimer to get this job. And the way that things we're talking about is because he was using also air quotes when it came to the championship drought. Why are you using air quotes on something that is a fact? 29 years that you have not made the NFC championship game. You haven't won it in 29 years. And by the way, let's look at recently. What teams have actually made it more and have also potentially won it more in the NFC championship before the Dallas Cowboys in 95, okay? Right after that, the Panthers, you mocked them, you laughed at them. The Eagles, 3 times have made the Super Bowl. Remember how much you mocked them and poked them for so long? The Washington Commanders made it to the NFC Championship in 3 days. So all these teams that you're making mockeries of, and by the way, the Giants may have at least 10 plus years since the last time that they've been in the NFC Championship. You have been there in 29 years. Now you're going for an enormous drought going into 30. And you're using quote unquote, like you're using air quotes now. What are we doing in Dallas? And arguably, I thought that they were smarter than this. Jerry Jones, I think a lot of this, and I talked about this before when I thought about, the Jones family and the way that they're running this family business is because I feel like Jerry Jones to me is the NFL version of Vince McMahon. Way I say this is because he purchased the organization and only purchased it for his own being, not for anybody else, not even for his sons. I feel like that there's a bit of that tension in the room. This is just me thinking hypothetically as to why the Suns pushed more of this idea out, because Jerry Jones came out and said that he wasn't vouching for this idea for Brian Schottenheimer. He was thinking more of Dion, and they didn't end up pulling the trigger on that. So Dion is now back here in Colorado, in Boulder, and he's going to continue to build upon successes of all of these young men that are in college football. And good for him. And the pay raises will come up. But the other thing is that Jerry Jones got a little bit more rebellious when he ended up proving the point that he was talking about how he could not think outside his comfort zone. Well, this is a bit out of your comfort zone because you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk on a guy who, by the way, his dad is arguably one of the greatest head coaches. Rest in peace, Marty Schottenheimer. But look at the track record. No head coaching experience. He's gone from up, down, and here we are, head coaching the Dallas Cowboys. Once again, you get another yes man in the building. This is the kind of stuff that Mike McCarthy was just validating a point. I don't want to be here and being a yes man in this, organization and in this type of atmosphere, because I got to deal with Jerry on a daily basis on Dallas media, whether it's radio or broadcast, wherever it may be, because Jerry always wants to talk about something. I then have to deal with Dak, who I got to make work as my quarterback because you're paying him $60 million a year now, and he's a B-plus quarterback. You got to make that thing work. The other thing is the defense now with Micah Parsons. It's now going through his third coordinator now since he's been in the league. Third defensive coordinator, 3 times. He's got to learn a new playbook, learn a new defensive scheme and design. He's got to go through all of that. I thought the Dallas Cowboys in the last few years would have learned and would have been better than this. But we all have been bamboozled by Dallas. And I think a lot of this, I don't know what it is. And look, I encourage therapy to a lot of people who are either struggling with addictions, who are struggling with trying to get focused and trying to, build their own pathway because it's healthy. And then not to mention unload and unpack all of the stuff that you've been festering in for years. I encourage that with a lot of people. I do. Because it's healthy. It's what helps to think with a different mindset. I don't know what you got to do in Dallas with the Jones. I don't know what you have to do. But this is the kind of stuff that makes every outside mind and voice think differently of you. Don't believe it? Listen to a lot of those radio guys. Because you know what? They may be onto something. And sure enough, they are currently talking about this, and it is not good. Sure, you'd hire Matt Eberflus as your defensive coordinator. He's a very good one, and I like him. I really do. But after all this, if this don't work, this is going to be a product of what is happening internally in the Jones family business. Jason, the news.
This is the hot press.
I don't know really what to make of it with the Dallas Cowboys. I thought they would have been smarter than this, but I'm wrong about it. Because evidently they have a lot of money. They are the most prestigious franchise, and they do this?
They are the wealthiest franchise out there. And the fact that they hire a guy like Brian Schottenheimer, and they didn't even expand their coaching search. It was four guys.
They were so insular about this whole thing. That's why when Jerry was asked the question whether he can be able to think outside his comfort zone, he told you right then and there. I mean, this is a risk in itself. Nobody knows how this is going to pan out, but I have a feeling this ain't going to pan out well because you now have to get a third defensive playbook. You now have to man the entirety of this roster. And look at all that's there up on your roster. Guys that are coming back from injury. Dak, who you're paying $60 million a year for, you got to get him to win playoff games. That's a ton of pressure on someone that is more of a yes man in Dallas. This never fails for Jerry Jones at all.
It's like I felt bad for Myles Garrett when he came in because he's had to deal with 5 defensive playbook changes and everything, and now he's got one that's going to stick permanently. But this Thursday marks the 100th anniversary of the East-West Shrine Game for the NFL. And the East-West Shrine Game is the game that's right before the Senior Bowl that is played to showcase a lot of talent across all of college football. The Senior Bowl is just for the seniors of all of college football that are out there. And, there's a lot of people this week that you are looking at. And, there's been a lot of talk and speculation about Jalen Milroe. He has not had a very good practice out at the Senior Bowl this week.
Yep. And you know what? This is the perfect opportunity for scouts because right now the names that are brewing up because Jackson Dart is now starting to get heat. Another name that's also been heating up really high. Yeah, Kyle McCord. Your Ohio State product. This is why that I'm like, this is why I said, here's the thing. I wasn't upset when McCord left to go to Syracuse because he does have a connection there in Syracuse. That's where he's from. But I just didn't like the fact that he was ran out the building because of obviously Ohio State's woes. Eventually, this stuff was going to end up working out. Now, I get it. You needed to clean up, refine the mistakes, all the rest of that. But I do feel like there are going to be some sneaky picks up in here that I may see as a second or a third round. Because even when I look at Will Howard, most people are saying that he could be a fourth or a fifth rounder. They're looking at Riley Leonard, not really a top high-end pick. He could be somewhere in the fourth. So again, these are some sneaky pickups from here. But we know the strength of the quarterback class. It's not great, but this is always the best time of year, and I have a ton of very good respected people I know that I text and I talk to that are all there in the East and West Shrine Bowl in Vegas, and then they're down there in the Senior Bowl, and they're all getting up a lot of interviews. Lots of good kids this year, but that right now is the rumor buzz is McCord and with Jackson Dart. Now, there may be another one that may actually come up at some point, but so far, that's what's been kind of the biggest rant and rave I've heard recently.
I mean, McCord got ran out of Ohio State because his decision-making was poor, his arm strength was lackluster, and he lacked the passion for being an Ohio State, guy. When the Michigan game came around, he was just like, I don't care.
But what would you expect if you got Ohio State fans literally jamming it down your throat? Because not only him, but Ryan Day, who also needed to, do the assignment. So
rise to the occasion.
Yeah,
like I'm telling you this right now, Kyle McCord, we barely beat Notre Dame in the regular season last year. If we had Will Howard last year, we'd blow out Notre Dame easily.
Well, that's the thing is because, like I said, and I've talked about this, if I would have imagined Will Howard and before Chip Kelly came in, when they had Bill O'Brien for a split second before he took the Boston College job, could we argue that Will Howard probably would have been a top 5 candidate in the Heisman Trophy? Because you know how Bill O'Brien's scheme works. He's very pass friendly. And he comes up with very clever schemes. That's why I know it would work, because he put up the same play designs with Sean Watson. He put up a lot of very good play designs for some quarterbacks. That's why he got the job. Is because he was a very good, clever play designer. So that would have been interesting. But again, he
left Penn State to go to Houston Texans and then, came back to college. Yep. So it's going to be interesting. But now we've got Pro Bowl news. So we said earlier that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are not going to the Pro Bowl. Rightfully so. They just finished playoff games. They want to have their bodies healed. They don't want to be involved in football, especially after their losses. Yeah. They want to make sure that they can rest up, heal, and get football off their mind for the next 3, 4, 5 months, and before they got to come back. So now the Pro Bowl alternates that we've got at the QB spot for the AFC is Russell Wilson and Drake May. And Drake May, I'm excited that he went, he was an alternate because, man, out of all of the rookie quarterbacks other than Jaden Daniels, I think Drake May shows the most promise out of all of them. And look at his stats and what he was able to do with a terrible New England Patriots team this year.
So this is why I said I think this almost sounds like you're kind of coming to my side a little bit here, because remember when I said this was going to be the team that is going to make the noise because of obviously the cap space and because of draft capital.
$126 million in cap.
I'm telling you, this is why I said, and then look, nothing against, the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they're such a proud organization. Look what's happening now. They're already engaging in extension talks with TJ Watt. It's not surprising. They always pay. What's funny is they're leading the league. They did this last year, and they're going to do it again, where they're leading the league in paying for defensive players. Yep. It does not surprise me. But this is why, with New England, I've got a potential franchise quarterback. I now got to build an offensive line and offensive weapons around him. I know I can get the defense all together because I have the perfect defensive group. I got Christian Gonzalez, who was a very good shutdown corner. I got a couple of other really good players that I can build upon and go and get more. So that's why I feel like New England has a chance to make the playoffs next year, because of just The situation is
You
just
got one of the better head
ideally,
coaches, too.
yeah, it's ideally perfect. I'm telling you. But here's the funny thing. This is another Patriot that now, since Mac Jones, remember Mac Jones made the Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
And this is another one now. And so I'm like, and again, I get it with the Pro Bowl, because people feel, they have mixed emotions about it. But still, they at the very least got their 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks from there, but at least one's got a little bit more upside than Mac Jones. I think there's no question. There's no argument about that. So I think with New England, I'm telling you, keep your eyes on them this offseason. This is going to be a shake-up type of offseason. And New England and Mike Vrabel, they're going to be busy.
Yeah, we get the Pro Bowl coming up this weekend.
Yep.
And then we have the East-West Shrine Bowl, and then by the end of February, beginning of March, like I think the first week of March, we got the Combine, and then free agency.
Yep.
And then pro days and the draft is what we got to look forward to. So
those right there, and this is what's funny, and what people need to understand is keep in mind of those dates, because again, the Pro Bowl's whatever, but the East-West Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, and then up until we get to the Scouting Combine and we get to the pro days, I know most people, because they keep telling me, well, the Scouting Combine doesn't really matter. If you are a football guy, okay, be in the mind of the scout, okay, because coaches, scouts, they all attend there. What are they looking for?
does Xavier Worthy get in the first round if he doesn't go to the Scouting Combine and break the 40-yard dash record?
But that's the thing is, they go there to look at the tangibles of a player. This is why, and I tell you, I've got my very good friend, he sends me film all the time because I'm looking for the film tape of in-game play with these players. And then I'm also looking at, well, what are the attributes? What are the gifts? What are the talents? What's the tangibles that they have that I could look at and I could put one and two together? I could put them together and say, okay, this kid, he's definitely going to have a bright future. And that's in any position. Because think about it. We're going to have this again. And I thought this was very successful because I had my top 10 draftees going into the draft. And the reason of it is because I did my homework and I started to kind of digest the Scouting Combine, the pro day, and of course the Senior Bowl. And it all amounted to those top 10. And a lot of, what's funny is those top 10s, because I had J.J. McCarthy at number 1 on my top 10, and look at what he looked like in the preseason. I mean, there was a lot of upside. And the other thing was, the top 5s, I had Malik Neighbors. He's a hit. I thought Roma Dunze would have been at least a little bit better, but because
I had Brian Thomas Jr. in my top 5.
Yeah, and you know what? I should have thought about that before because arguably I was like, I wasn't sure with Brian Thomas, but now he's proven me a different direction. The other thing was Alu Pashanu. Look at that offensive line now for the Jets.
Yes,
God, I love. Oh my God, I love that pick. But then you got Laya Tulatu in Indianapolis. So there is a bunch of these guys. I think the misses that I had, but I'm a stalemate with Joe Milton because I liked watching him during the preseason with the Patriots. I did because he's got a lot of athletic gifts.
Last game of the season looked good too. I
kind of whiffed on Jalen Wright, the running back from Tennessee who went to Miami.
Okay, yeah.
A very fast runner. I thought, okay, this is ideally Miami. They love speed because Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, and now you add Jalen Wright. Okay, that makes sense. But there were a couple of them that I had up on there, but I've had more hits than I had at misses. So I'm gonna love doing the top 10 again with these draftees because I'm curious about these ones.
Yeah. The combine is definitely huge. I mean, Baker Mayfield wouldn't have gone number 1 overall. Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have been in the first round and everything if it had not been for the Scouting Combine. So that's something to look out for. Yeah. But the last little bit of news that I've got, and I looked this up just to make sure that I'm right about this. Right now, the front runner for the New Orleans Saints job, and that's why they haven't announced anything yet because they've had a second interview with Mike McCarthy 2 days ago.
Right.
And they had a second interview with Kellen Moore yesterday. Right now, it looks like Kellen Moore is probably going to get the New Orleans Saints job once the Eagles are done in the playoffs.
So my thing about Kellen Moore, and it really was interesting, and again, I was curious to see what he would look like in a head coaching role. Because remember, there were some backlashes against Kellen Moore when it came to him as an offensive coordinator with Dallas, because there were some of the offensive schemes people questioned about, right? And then he goes to the Chargers. Kind of was a throwaway year because Staley didn't work out as a head coach. So we didn't really get the best of him with Herbert. But then once he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, most people kind of question some of his schemes. But I mean,
he's a run first guy.
Yeah. And the other thing is he also developed packages that make Saquon Barkley unstoppable. And so that's why it's like,
pairing him with Kamara, whoo, that'll be dangerous. I mean, but the thing is, like, does he get a 4-year grace period? Because for the first 2 years of his head coaching candidacy, if he goes to New Orleans, you're going to be looking at him like, okay, he's not doing well, but we are in cap hell. We don't have the roster built up the way that we want to. So I think that if you hire him in as your New Orleans Saints head coach, you give him a 4-year grace period. You get time to get all of this old, disgusting roster out of the way and, build it up from scratch, get the quarterback that you want in there, and then give him the chance to prove how good of a head coach he can be.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea. I mean, to me personally, I lean toward Mike McCarthy only because I know the stability of it. But if Kellen Moore, if he gets this job, again, no knock to Kellen Moore, but you got to figure out that cap space. You got to figure out the construction of the roster because you're going to need to get younger on defense. As far as certain offensive pieces, because I got to know what's up with Chris Olave. Yeah, I got to know what's going on with him.
Concussions in like 2 years.
That's what I'm saying. So then you get Rashid Shaheed coming back from an ACL tear. You're also getting a couple of other players, but from what I'm told, the target right now that people are looking at is that Sean Payton might actually bring in Juwan Johnson, the tight end. So now you may have to potentially look at a tight. There are certain positions there that you may have to consider filling in those holes. Yeah. So there's a lot to really think about. Can Kellen Moore do it? Possibly. But let's just see exactly with what I just ultimately have to see the moves to solidify and add validity and to how if this even works or not. Because remember, we were on record. This was my stalemate job. I wasn't sure because depending on the coaching hire, if this was going to be good for New Orleans or this was going to be potentially pretty bad. So that was where I was on the stalemate of it. So, but we'll see in the coming days. It could be very interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Jason with the news.
This is the hot press.
So I want to retract to Buffalo for a second.
Okay.
So I know all of you have a hindrance of a lot of these AFC quarterbacks. Take a deep breath. Okay, follow me when I talk about this. So Buffalo came in with this idea, all right? They were going to be the team closely to match up with Kansas City. Well, apparently that seemed like it was the case, but then it fell away from them. And Buffalo had multiple chances. They had multiple opportunities. But once again, Buffalo comes up short and they shoot themselves in the foot. My thing with the Bills, I do not think Sean McDermott is a terrible coach. I don't think that at all. I think the last 4 times that the Buffalo Bills have faced against Kansas City managed to put over 30 points against that defense. I get it, it's young, and I get it that there's a mixture of experience, but there's a few takeaways I had in the Buffalo game. Where was James Cook when he was clearly working well on the ground? Yep. When you needed it. And sure enough, it was where the conservative play started to come in. And this is the backlash against defensive coaches. Now, mind you, There were two defensive coaches that got hired, okay, recently. Aaron Glenn and Pete Carroll. Both of which I really liked in their candidacy and in their landing spots.
Vrabel, if you want to count him.
Yeah, Vrabel's another one who also landed up on there, so there's three. And it worked perfectly for their landing spots because Vrabel knows the New England organization. Okay, and then so does Aaron Glenn. The other thing is, and what people were questioning about Pete Carroll with the Raiders job is it's like, well, he's getting too old. But he has a lot of knowledge, and he's got the pipeline on the West Coast for recruitment. That's the one beauty about him. And at the same time, I've got a smart-minded GM in John Spytek in the front office. So it could work complementary and hand in hand. That's why I think the Raiders, when they made this move, man, Mark Davis finally did something right. That's what it felt like with those hires. Now, with Sean McDermott in the Bills, eventually the Bills are going to get over this. And you know that they're going to have to. But here's the thing. If Kellen Moore gets this job in New Orleans, Joe Brady's job is safe. And I guarantee you there's unfinished business here. But the thing about it is, and what kind of makes me cringe is the amount of backlash towards the players who should have caught the ball. Why? Because you make millions of dollars to not catch the ball, to not go and execute a play. You're ruining your quarterback. You're giving Dalton Kincaid the same treatment people were giving Mark Andrews. Give me a break. I'm serious. I just am like, gosh. This is why when I had to describe this, I said this. I'm like, the AFC standard is much different than the NFC's. Because the NFC, you're not dealing with two teams that piss you off every year to potentially get into the Super Bowl. It's not that simple. Okay, you can have your offensive lines, you can have your defenses, you can have your weapons, you can have your running backs. I mean, when you watched a lot of, like all those teams in the NFC, right? All it took was defense, offensive line, run game, wide receiver help. That's all it took. And by the way, Jared Goff, I'm not saying Jared Goff is terrible. I just felt like he was overly used, and I thought that was bad play calling because Jahmyr Gibbs was great on the ground. But look at the talent Detroit had. Detroit was phenomenal before all the injuries. Nobody knew that Jaden Daniels was going to be this talented in Washington, but yet he's got veteran experienced guys. They're way ahead of schedule. I'll shift to them here in a second. But all I'm saying is that when you criticize the AFC side of the quarterbacks outside of Mahomes, give them some kind of grace. Because look at it. Josh Allen, 22 of 34, 230 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and no picks. What do you expect Josh Allen truthfully to do? I know everybody around him has to work. But here's the thing. These are a few of the takeaways. So the James Cook one was one. The second one, why are you chasing for points way too early in the game? What are you doing? That one touchdown, right, when they went for 2, it was still early in the game. I got 3 touchdowns. I got 3 timeouts. I got plenty of time. I'm in the third quarter. I'm getting into the fourth quarter. I would have taken the points. I would have just taken the extra point, go into the fourth quarter with some momentum, because that touchdown with James Cook, which was immaculate, that's the pivotal part. I would have went for 2. Save your spectacular move for later. That's what Kansas City did right. Those 2, right? The Samaje Perine move and then Steve Spagnuolo's corner blitz. Those were their 2 ideal moves. They didn't even practice it, by the way. They didn't. This was like, it's like when we're at the poker table. You don't show off your poker face and you don't show off your cards. Okay? You got to keep calm. You got to keep your composure. I just play bluff because they don't know the cards you hold in your hand, and you're better off to do that. So chasing for points was a knock on Buffalo. The other one was in that corner blitz package. Why was there not a running back set up on the left side of Josh Allen to be my potential blocker in case that comes up? So Josh can then run to the left and find his receiver there to go and get that first down marker. That's what you need. But did you see how all of the linebackers and potential safeties all kind of creeped in, but they only camped right behind that hash mark? Why? Because they knew it was coming. If they got the ball out, whether it was a run or whether it was a pass, they were trying to make sure they did not cross that hash mark. That was very clever by Spags. It seriously was. Because the fact that what was going through his head on a 4th and 5 is you are trying to now collapse the pocket altogether. Because what does Josh Allen do 9 out of 10 times when the pocket is spread out? He runs, right? He runs right up the middle. When it's spread out across, he runs up the middle. Spags made sure he had 2 guys there up front and made pressures so Josh could not run. You couldn't run up the middle because that is his strength. That's his strong suit. But what I don't get about Buffalo is why they didn't set up the running back to his left. Be my secondary protection so I could run out there, know the blitz is coming, because it is. On a 4th down play, you don't think the blitz is coming?
If anybody has to blame for this game, it's Joe Brady.
I do. I do believe it was a Joe Brady bad play call. But I also do think it was a situational play call of chasing for points that I also hold Sean McDermott accountable for. But I don't think he's a bad coach. Nope. I just think what's hard to define this is that the fact that this is the 4th time you faced against Kansas City, and they've managed to put over 30 points on you all 4 times. Something has to give. I know that the team's defense was getting younger because, by the way, just this morning, Micah Hyde announced his retirement after 11 seasons. I know that's a crushing blow, but this is why you had to get rid of a lot of these old existing contracts to get younger, because you know that this was going to be something that was going to happen. So again, I'm not knocking on McDermott with this. But what I will say is this is the 4th time. So you better get corrected, because there are going to be lots of hungry AFC teams out there, hungry, pissed, determined that they want to beat Kansas City. There's going to be a ton of them. But I do want to pivot to Jaden Daniels and Washington, because a lot of people, I've said this before, chases my witness, being here on the show. Washington is way far ahead of schedule than people think. They are. They were just riding the moment. That loss did not matter. I understand it's against the Eagles, your division rivals. I get that. But it really truthfully didn't matter, because now you have plenty of cap space. You've got a veteran receiver in Terry McLaurin, and who knows if De'Ami Brown might be back next year. But the other thing is, you had veteran pieces with Bobby Wagner. I could potentially see him joining with the Raiders to end up getting some veteran experience in the room because of Pete Carroll and his defense. There's going to be a couple pieces you may have to move and you may have to accumulate. But
Zach Ertz already said he's coming back, so.
Yeah, Zach Ertz, he's not retiring. He's coming back. So that's a very good pivotal piece. And this is the other thing. You've also got Austin Eckler for 1 more year because he signed a 2-year deal. So that's the thing. You've got pivotal pieces on this roster. Jaden Daniels was only the focal point to ensuring you have the franchise quarterback. Now you do. The other thing is, what a complete culture turnaround for the Washington Commanders. After all these years under Dan Snyder, that's the part I'm not hanging my head low on, because people didn't even project this team to make the playoffs. I had them second in the NFC East because I am watching the debacle of Dallas, and it is hilarious. And at the same time, Washington would finish second in the division behind Philly. I did not think they would make this far into the NFC Championship game, but what does that tell you about their future? Their future's bright. And what's funny about this is when I watch Jaden Daniels do what he does, I got to get a healthier O-line. I got to get him some more weapons. And I've also got to get him very good defensive players to give me clutch stops. But the other good thing is Cliff Kingsbury's not going nowhere.
He's got to get people that don't fumble the ball either.
You're absolutely right. And so this is the thing. Remember how we talked about, if Cliff Kingsbury would be available? I don't think his job's done as an offensive coordinator. This is the same thing we would say about Joe Brady. I mean, think about it. You have a great thing going with these quarterbacks. This is why I totally understand coordinators going and chasing for head coaching jobs. I mean, Jacksonville was willing to sign the dotted line on Liam Cohen the second he came back, and he asked for more money once Balky got fired. Okay, but the point of it is there's no pressure. You just got to get Trevor Lawrence to work. Because now the talk is nobody is sure about Trevor Lawrence. Nobody. That's why Liam Cohen's got to make it work. But the point is that I'm watching the state of the NFC, and it's so widely talented. I've got 10 more years of this, what I just watched with Washington, with Jaden Daniels. 10 more years of this stuff. That's why, if you're Washington, don't hang your heads on this. You are way ahead of schedule. A lot further than people think. So that's why I'm like, if they lost, whatever, who cares? You then go build up, and then you go and potentially make another run next year. Because like I said, there are teams out there in the NFC. I mean, last year we had San Francisco and Detroit. Detroit failed to make it this year because I felt like the play calling was a little cute. I didn't feel like they were really there in the game. They were thinking a ton. This is why Detroit, with as talented of this roster as it is, they still have time on their window, but they do not have too much time. You got to be able to pick this puppy up. Green Bay, look at what Matt LaFleur is doing with Jordan Love. Minnesota, the question mark with him is how healthy is J.J. McCarthy going to be? Because I don't see them. I don't think they're going to retain back Sam Darnold. They're going to go with J.J. They'll have Daniel Jones as the backup, which is fine, because at least you'll have a quality backup behind him if something were to happen. But how healthy will McCarthy be? The other question mark is Ben Johnson right for the job in Chicago? Can he make it work with Caleb Williams? So this is why the NFC, as I've stated before, and I'll say it again, this is why it's built different. Because there's so many multitudes that you could fix and adjust, whether it's defense or offense. But there's always a new team that emerges and then that comes up. I mean, last year it was Detroit. This year it was Washington. There's so many emerging teams up there. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Who could they be next year? Chicago? Carolina? Maybe even, maybe even just, Minnesota if they get that far. There are so many potential teams out there.
Maybe the Cardinals.
Maybe. Hey, I'm all for it. Maybe. Because at the end of the day, the NFC is an absolute open battlefield. It's not like that with the AFC. Because the AFC, we've had to deal with 20 years of dominance of Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. And then there was the Peyton years from Indy and Denver. And then there was Big Ben in his time in Pittsburgh. And then the one time a quarterback from Delaware literally got past Brady and them and got to the Super Bowl and won against San Francisco.
Because Ray Lewis was retiring.
Oh, it was a great defense. The other thing I take away is Ray Rice was a hell of a runner. They also, Torrey Smith, by the way, was very clutch in that game.
Yeah.
He was very clutch along with Jacoby Jones. So they had really good guys. And I love their offensive line. Marshall Yanda and
you put Josh Allen in the NFC, he's in the Super Bowl.
Look at Lamar Jackson with his record in the NFC. I think if you put him in there, I think you'd see Lamar every single year. So this was my point, was I said it to people, and I got a bunch of backlash because the point was they didn't see with what I was seeing. And that's why I give my fans grace. That's why they love the show so much. But what I said was, excluding Mahomes, take all of the AFC quarterbacks right now, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, Lamar, Trevor Lawrence, any of those AFC quarterbacks, and move them to the NFC. I guarantee you those quarterbacks there from the AFC have a one chance to make it into the Super Bowl. One time that they can appear in it. And they were all like, it doesn't work for all teams. I said, I don't care. Because the thing is, every team in the NFC, and you're watching this, they are going to address the problems, both offensively and defensively. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at it from a hypothetical standpoint of, think of the quarterback play. That's the thing. The NFC doesn't have a ton of quarterback play. Now they may. Now with Jaden Daniels and
possible
Jalen
Bryce Young
Hurts
getting better.
and Bryce Young, Caleb Williams. Now I got it. That's what I'm saying is I'm like, it's those things I keep in mind as far as quarterback play. I know with what they are, with their build, but I'm just saying, I just think with those quarterbacks from there, watch all of them get at least one appearance in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's it.
I can see it. I can definitely see it.
But this is why I've said, I just don't think people realize how difficult it is in the AFC to represent. I mean, we've had to go through years of dominances. I mean, there were a couple waves, don't get me wrong. I mean, the Pittsburgh dominance, Denver's dominance, Kansas City's right now, New England's, there's been plenty of them. And you sprinkle in the stories you'd hope that they would eventually win it. Okay, that 2006 Chargers team was phenomenal. It was talented. They had a lot of offensive guys. LaDainian Tomlinson was having an arguably one of the greatest running back years, one of the best, and
he still holds records to this day.
He does.
Most touchdowns in a single season by a running back.
Yeah, there were so many teams that we know that have had so much dominance of talent, but yet never equaled a ring. Never did. But this is why it's not that simple, and it's very difficult. So I did research up on this, right? And the funny thing of it is, because I'm reverting back to the comment that Chris Rose made about Major League Baseball. How in the last 20 years, there were only about 6 teams, right, that won the World Series who had the best wins and loss record in Major League Baseball. 6 in 20 years. That doesn't even seem that much. But it's like I kept saying and like I kept harping on, is unless your ownership is spending the money, you are blabbering your mouth to the wrong people. Okay, just because you want investigations of the Dodgers and you want investigations of this and that and whatever, how about yell at your owner for not spending the money that they know they have? I mean, it's a perception issue, not so much a reality, because the reality is only 6 teams have won the World Series with the best records in 20 years. That's not that many, and so when you think about it, I mean, hell, we had the Diamondbacks represented in the World Series in 23. So it's
and they barely
very
made it. They
rare.
made it with like an 89, I think, record. 89.
Not even the best in the National League.
No, they were the 3rd wild card team, second wild card team.
Yeah, and they weren't even the best record in Major League Baseball in the National League at all.
Nope.
And they still made it.
And we've seen the teams with the best record, like the Seattle Mariners, the 01 Mariners had the best record in all of baseball history with 113 wins. And they lost to a wild card team, Yankees, that had 93 wins that year.
With a lot of determination, because of course this was the most vulnerable time in our country. And they were very destined, and they were determined to get into the World Series, which was arguably one of the greatest World Series I've ever watched in my life. But yeah, even with that talented team, with Griffey, with Buhner, with Ichiro, with all those players, there's never going to be – that's why Seattle fans are so pissed, because there's never going to be another talented Mariners team like the 2001.
No.
So
113 wins. That's the most wins in all of baseball history.
And I love watching Julio Rodriguez. I really do. But it's just like they can't seem to capitalize it for some reason. I don't know if that's just a Pacific Northwest problem, but they
won
cannot.
the division by 9 games last year, and they still couldn't pull it out.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense with me. But, you know, who knows if they're going to be able to get it fixed. Well, we'll see, because now the Astros are a little more vulnerable. So there might be some changes in the AL West. Watch this thing be the Athletics. Why do I feel like that? It's always a vulnerable year where something like that out of the blue, out of the curve, always.
I mean, now that the owner's spending money because you guys are moving, like you might actually
screw him. But I do want to come back to real quick while we still have more time. I want to go back to the trade that you broke out between. It was a 3-team trade. So it was between Carolina, Colorado, and Chicago in hockey with Mikko Rantanen. So the only thing I will tell you about this, and I've heard this from a lot of Colorado fans living here in right around the Denver area. Okay, I've been to Ball Arena and I've watched the Avs play. And actually, I've watched in particular them play the Blackhawks, and I've watched Connor Bedard. Absolutely just phenomenal. I thought he was going to have an SC top 10 goal that I would have loved to have watched there, but he got blocked. But besides that point, this was a coin flip of a trade, because what happened is that there was some animosity in the building in Colorado, because Mikko Rantanen was harping upon a contract extension. And he wanted money that was similar to Nathan McKinnon. That ain't happening. And let me tell you why. As much as I see him as an offensive firepower, right? As much as I see him as the number 2 scorer next to his lead, Mikko Rantanen is only a one-trick pony. And the way that this happens, he's very capable with the puck in his hands to go and score goals. But then when you have to play defense and you have to backtrack and you got to be able to defend, he kind of leaves his defense and his goaltender hanging to dry. There's not a whole lot of defense. If you go look at the percentages of defensive efficiency, Mikko Rantanen is not even up there in that category. So this is why it's a coin flip, because it's going to work one of 2 ways. Either number one, he goes into a new system in Carolina, which I don't know how. I'll be honest with you. I've watched Carolina in the last 5 seasons, Chase. I do not know how in the hell they even get away with a lot of the trades and signings that they do. I mean, I watched this from when they got Brady Shea, they got Brent Burns, that now they have Mikko Rantanen. Hell, they fleeced Pittsburgh getting Jake Gensel last year. I couldn't even believe that move. And I'm looking at Kyle Dubas sideways, and I'm like, what the hell is happening? So, but my point is that if they get it, they're going to get a scorer in Mikko Rantanen. There's no question. And then you add in Taylor Hall, which Chicago is feeling is that there was so much inconsistency, you had to let him go, which is understandable. But you're going to get a scorer, and either one of 2 things will happen. Is one, he goes into a new system. Let's say he actually changes up the things that were kind of hindering him down. That Colorado may be pissed, because then that means, well, there goes that, and there goes one of our pivotal pieces. And this always does happen with teams, because sometimes if you lose one pivotal piece, that determines your identity by the time you get into March and April. Yep. It's very crucial. I've seen this happen before. But the other side is you get him and he still scores, but he's still going through the defensive woes. Then maybe it's not so bad not giving him the contract extension for Colorado, because here's the other thing. They get Martin Necas, a very good forward, who I think really complements well with the Lions in Colorado. The other one, they also got a very good face-off guy. If you actually look at his face-off percentages, I'm getting a guy that knows how to keep possession of the puck on their side on offense. So that's a good deal. The only thing I don't get, why Chicago was the middleman in this. Because if you look at it, okay, they get rid of Taylor Hall. It's not working. They gave up a couple picks to Colorado in the mix. They only got a third rounder this year, right? And they're retaining 50% of Mikko Rantanen's contract. What the hell? What is Chicago doing with that? I don't understand this. This is why I have a hard time figuring out what is Chicago's rebuild plan. Because I thought the whole point of this, you're trying to build potential players around arguably your superstar in Connor Bedard. What are we doing? That's the part where I'm like, I look at this and it's just like, it's ridiculous. I couldn't even believe it myself. But, of course, somebody had to be the middleman in this trade. It just so happened to be Chicago, but I feel like Chicago, I feel like they gave up too much than what they should have. So, but, again, it makes everybody else happy, but I felt like in particular with Carolina and with Colorado, that's a coin flip. And by the way, I've also heard a little source as well before ending the show. Pittsburgh Penguins is officially on fire sale. They're officially about damn time, because here's the thing. Two proud organizations between Pittsburgh and Washington. Washington, we know, like Alex Ovechkin is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he is going to spend all of his years in Washington. There's no doubt about that. But at least Washington is not so insular. They're not so rigid, because the knock on Washington after they won the Stanley Cup with Braden Holtby, they couldn't even figure out the goaltending right. They had Semyon Varlamov. They had Eli Samsonov. They also had Vitek Vanacek. All of those, they could not work in Washington. They went and worked in different places. This year, Logan Thompson is already leading the votes in all-star votes at goaltender. And I knew Logan Thompson was going to end up coming out the gate. I mean, this is a Vegas product out of Henderson to come in with the Vegas Golden Knights, be the perfect tandem for Adin Hill. And I was like, Washington's getting the future goaltender. I knew that right off the bat. And sure enough, look at who's doing just fine in the Metropolitan. Washington Capitals. While the Pittsburgh Penguins, just like the Steelers, seem to be very proud in back-to-back Stanley Cups, the great three. If this doesn't work, your biggest idea of trying to fix this, let's go and take on another contract. Erik Karlsson, yeah, how's that working? Not working great, is it? That's why I'm like, finally a fire sale out of a proud organization from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Hopefully you learned your lesson, Kyle, because that is, I'm telling you, I used to like watching. I really, really, really liked watching Pittsburgh for years when Sidney Crosby and all of them were in their prime. But we are way past this now. Like, it's not working. That's why I'm like, I think Pittsburgh is in the low end of the totem pole than what Washington was. Because Washington, unlike Pittsburgh, did not get insular and they did not get rigid. So, and they're still dealing with Alex Ovechkin. They still are. And it's working out just fine for them being the first place team in the Metropolitan. Hell, maybe they even may end up making it past the second round. We don't know. Eastern Conference, the Eastern Conference has an interesting shape to them. But it's going to be the same teams: Toronto, Washington, Florida, and a couple others. It's going to be the same old Eastern Conference.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. Good show today from us. Well, we're back here Thursday, Friday. Not really much, to be honest, because we're ultimately in all day from next week with the Super Bowl and all that. But I have no problem doing a little bit of some evaluation during the East-West Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. I don't
Got the
mind
NFL
doing
honors next week too.
Yeah, I'll do my own homework. I mean, the
Get to
honors.
figure out who the MVP is. Josh Allen.
Would you cross your fingers that it would happen. But, again, whatever it may be with as far as the MVP goes, I mean, I already know it may be Saquon Barkley getting the offensive player. No question.
That's inevitable.
Yeah. All right. Well, appreciate everybody for joining on by here tonight on our show on the Snake Sports Talk Show. We are back at this on Thursday and Friday. You don't want to end up missing it, guys. Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever you end up getting your podcast and all social media platforms, Roku, iHeartRadio. Chase and myself, we're out. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone.